I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along. Today is Monday, February 6, 2023. And as always, we begin the show with hot topics. But before I do that, an instruction. We want you to support this work, be a part of this work, be a part of this movement. Subscribe, like, and share. No matter what platform you're on, we want you to go over to the Insight YouTube channel. That's our kind of home base. You can reach us on Facebook, obviously, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and other platforms, but we want to have the address of record, the home of record, be the Insight News channel on YouTube. So the favor I'm asking of you is that before this program is over or right now, go to YouTube Insight News and click on like, share, and subscribe, be a member. We've got around 300 subscribers right now. We want to grow to 1,000, and I'm inviting you to be part of that number. Let's grow this movement. Well, for hot topics, the main feature today is going to be my conversation with my friend, Robin Hickman Winfield, and we're going to talk about the play that's going to be being presented this week at the Ordway. It's a soldier's play, a famous work and an important work. We'll get to that in a minute. But for hot topics, I want to start with the Insight news story that says Black police officers aren't colorblind. They're infected by the same anti-Black bias as American society and police in general. It's a story written by Rashad Shabazz, who's associate professor at the School of Social Transformation, Arizona State University. And the professor is saying, once again, Americans are left reeling from the horror of video footage showing police brutalizing an unarmed Black man who later died. He says some details in the latest case of extreme police violence were gut-wrenchingly familiar. A police traffic stop of a Black male motorist turned violent. But for many of us, other details were unfamiliar. The fact that the 5 police officers accused of using everything from pepper spray to a taser to a police baton and even intermittent kicks and punches against the motorists. The fact that they were also Black is unfamiliar. After pulling over 29-year-old Tyree Nichols for what they said was reckless driving, Black officers in the Memphis Police Department's now disbanded Scorpion unit beat Nichols ultimately to death. And so we've got a story at insightnews.com written by Rashad Shabazz, who's a geographer and scholar of African American studies at Arizona State University. We've asked him to explore the societal conditions in which Black police officers could brutalize another Black man. Go to insightnews.com, check the full story out. A next item that's related is actually an article about Tyree online at insightnews.com. That article is headlined, Tyree Nichols' Death Prompts Calls for Federal Legislation to Promote Police Reform. But Congress can't do much about fixing local police. That article is written by Alexis Carlson, who's an associate professor of law at Rutgers University. And I'll just summarize or read a part of that. So Alexis writes that the severe beating of Tyree Nichols, a 29-year-old Black man, by 5 Memphis police officers, leading to his death 3 days later, has sparked renewed calls for federal measures to combat police violence and racism. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, a package of reform initiatives aimed at local police departments, passed the U.S. House of Representatives in 2021, but did not make it through the Senate. On January 29th, 2023, Ben Crump, the lawyer for the Nichols family, told CNN, "Shame on us if we don't use Nichols' tragic death to finally get the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act passed. Since the rise of Black Lives Matter movement and massive protests in 2020 in response to the murder of George Floyd, the Black men killed that year by a police officer here in Minneapolis, there's been widespread interest in the problems of racism in American policing. Now there appears to be renewed appetite for change, including from President Joe Biden, who mentioned the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in a statement on Nichols' death. People are looking to the federal government to address this issue of national importance. So again, that's a story in currently on insightnews.com. Go there, check it out, and there's more information there as well. The last item, or next to the last item on our hot topics, is a piece, again, at insightnews.com, a piece written by Shivantia Johnson, who's Associate Vice President for Academic Partnerships and Innovation at Clemson University. And this is our Black History Month feature. We hope to have a feature every day for the duration of Black History Month. And the professor says that America has long been the land of innovation. More than 13,000 years ago, she says, the Clovis people created what many called the first American invention. It was a stone tool primarily used to hunt large game. The spirit of American creativity has persisted through the millennia, through the first patent granted in 1641 and on to today. One group of prolific innovators, however, has been largely ignored by history. That group, Black inventors born or forced into American slavery. Though U.S. patent law was created with a colorblind language to foster innovation, the patent system consistently excluded these inventors from recognition. The Professor Johnson says that as a law professor and a licensed patent attorney, she understands both the importance of protecting inventions and the negative impact of being unable to use the law to do so. But, she says, despite patents being largely out of reach to them throughout their early U.S. history, both enslaved Africans and free African Americans, did invent and innovate. Article's a good article because it explains, number one, who some of the early inventors were in our country's history, even through slavery and despite slavery. And it also explains why patents matter. So it's a good way to get a sense of that. It also reveals, as could be expected, the history of enslaved persons' inventions being exploited by the owners and how they reap the benefits. But how can we, going back and going forward, reap the benefits of our own inventions? Well, good questions, a good story available at insightnews.com. Go there, check it out. And from there, you can get a link to our YouTube channel. And that's where I want you to subscribe, like, and share as well. The final item is an item that I want to refer you to, and that is the recent Hawthorne Huddle. Hawthorne, as you know, or you may not know, is a neighborhood in North Minneapolis that has convened monthly meetings for about 28 years. In the past couple of years, I have served as the moderator for the Hawthorne Huddle, along with my friend Diana Hawkins, who is the chair and executive director of the Hawthorne Huddle. Well, every month, the Huddle brings thought leaders, activists, organizers to meet with civic, community, neighborhood leaders. And I can tell you, these programs are fascinating. Since COVID, the programs have been all virtual, but people will remember that this was a signature monthly event. In fact, it was supported by several major corporate partners, primarily General Mills and others, who wanted to call attention to these challenges of community and of neighborhood in North Minneapolis in particular. Well, last week's Hawthorne Huddle was exceptional. They all are, but this one, because it presented an interview with Tanya Allen, and Tanya Allen is the new president of the McKnight Foundation. I just say, if you get a chance to, you can click on this channel and find the Hawthorne Huddle and listen to this wonderful interview. What a vision and what a powerful voice, what a fierce voice for change. I'll just say that she mentioned that the McKnight Foundation had been referred to as the McWhite Foundation, signifying that its predilection, its preference had been supporting white culture, white ideas, but it's undergone, like many organizations, a significant change. And among those change and reflecting that change is her appointment to president of the organization. And she said, when you come to her office, you will see that all the staff, or the majority of the staff, are people of color. The majority are women. And that is a major change. And she says it's going to show up in their giving as well. I think they're giving about $120 million per year in donations in the community, primarily locally here in Minnesota and the Dakotas, where they're based, but also elsewhere around the world where they have a geographic presence. McKnight Foundation is a foundation that's created from money earned by the 3M company. And so that's kind of the source of that. Well, check it out. We've got a link to the Hawthorne Huddle in the comments, I think, and you can check that out and enjoy that program as well. Well, let me now move to my guest today, and my friend Robin Hickman. Robin is Robin Hickman Winfield, who is the leader and the founder of SoulTouch Productions. She's been an advocate, a producer, an award-winning media personality. And we're going to start the conversation talking about a project that she's supporting, that I'm supporting, and it's the play that's going to be opening at the Ordway Theater. The play is a soldier's play. Robin, good afternoon, sister. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Queen Robin. Queen, how you doing?
No. Just trying to be obedient and walk in my calling, brother. That's all.
Well, we connected on the play and what it means to our community. I'm going to ask you to go into describing the play, first of all, the background of it, what the story's about, and why it's important that we pay attention, and what you have done, what we are doing to try to connect to the community as the community exists today.
Well, it's, a soldier's play is a masterpiece from playwright Charles Fuller, which was a gift, I think, to the community back in the 80s. And I think many of your listeners may remember A Soldier's Story, which was a movie that starred many greats, many great actors. You may remember Denzel was in it, Robert Townsend, there's many actors. Art Evans tell a story about art in a minute, but many so we might remember the movie, but the play was on Broadway in the 80s, and it's a story about the segregated army, and it takes place in a base, an army base in the South, and it's a kind of a whodunit drama. And again, I'm not going to give it up, but it's a very powerful story about that lists up some of the very racial reckoning that we're dealing with today. So we've got racism, but we also have the reckoning of internalized oppression and what plays out when we have to internalize as a people, as Black men, internalize that oppression. So it's dealing with some of those issues, and it's this as we kind of grapple with the horrors of what we're dealing with right now with Brother Tyree. And what we're dealing with, of how do we grasp what happened in Memphis, and so some of these very issues that are still playing out today that we will experience, that we experience and see in the play. It's a heavy story. It's a very, very heavy story, and so and bringing it to the Ordway presenting the play, and actually the play will be presented at the Fitzgerald. This is a partnership with the Fitzgerald, and First Avenue now kind of owns and runs the Fitzgerald, and a partnership with the Ordway. I said, wow, to bring this heavy play with all that we're dealing with here in Minnesota, it's trauma, and it's a traumatic experience when we have to experience trauma over and over again. What do we do to prepare our community? And again, audiences that may not look like us, sitting and kind of being, I say, warriors to our trauma. Well, how do we prepare for that? Again, unfortunate images of Black men in situations of trauma. So that's a narrative that we're all too familiar with. And we have other stories, and Black men have other stories. So how do we create and bring together Black men who can articulate, deal with those issues of trauma, but also articulate narratives that are not about trauma? So we have a lot to talk about, but the play itself is a masterpiece. I mentioned Art Evans, who I was fortunate to bring here last spring. He's one of the actors in The Soldier's Story, and he also acted in the play on Broadway when it was first brought in the 80s. Had a conversation with Art Evans. He was in my Uncle Gordon Parks' movie Leadbelly. So I brought him here for a screening of Leadbelly, and we were at Golden Time Coffee Shop, and my brother Kadar was talking to Art about even playing in the movie A Soldier's Play. He went into a zone just sharing how difficult it was. An actor to even play in that role. He was Sergeant Wilkie in the movie. And he said, this is how difficult it was to play in the movie. It's intense. I thought about back when I was living in DC, and I went to a birthday party, my brother-in-law Dave Winfield's birthday party in New York, and met Howard Rollins, who played in the movie A Soldier's Play. Woo! He was mad back in the day. And I met Adolph Caesar. We might remember him from The Color Purple. He played Mister's father, but he was the sergeant in A Soldier's Story. And then in the return of A Soldier's Play in 2020 at the Roundabout Theater, who is actually touring the play right now, my man, Blair Underwood, who's a dear friend, played in the lead role in A Soldier's Play when it returned on Broadway. I actually had a chance to share with Blair what we're doing here in Minnesota in presenting A Soldier's Play, and the Vision Council of Black men who have convened, 20 plus Black men who have come together in partnership with presenting the play, but in also coming together to talk about how do we lift up the stories of Black men, Black veterans, Black street soldiers who are serving our community. So we're doing some unique things here. Very proud. And Blair was like blown away, like, wow. I said, yeah, brother, and a clip of you in this play served as motivation in bringing these brothers together to see what do we do different here again in Minnesota to change the narrative. That was a mouthful, but we can pick that apart. We can unpack all of that.
Well, let me give a little more background from today's issue of Insight News. The headline is Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning play at Fitzgerald Theater under a banner headline that says Ordway presents A Soldier's Play. And the article reads, and I'll read some and summarize some. A Soldier's Play comes to the Ordway February 8th through 12th. The 1982 Pulitzer Prize winning thriller by Charles Fuller has rocketed back into the spotlight thanks to the 2020 Tony Award to Roundabout Theater Company, which won in the Best Revival category. The venue, as you mentioned, Robin, is going to be the Fitzgerald Theater around the corner up the street from the Ordway at 10 East Exchange Street in downtown St. Paul. And the article says that Broadway's Norm Lewis leads a powerhouse cast in this North American tour of A Soldier's Play, a show that the Chicago Tribune calls a, quote, highly entertaining, strikingly taut drama that you don't want to end.
Don't miss it.
The play is directed by Tony winner Kenny Leon, and it, according to, I think, a Wall Street Journal story, quote unquote, deserves to be staged regularly all
Yes.
over America, though it's hard to imagine that it will ever be done better than this. It keeps you guessing all the way to the final curtain. And so that's praise. And as you mentioned, the story is about in 1944 on a Louisiana Army base, 2 shots ring out and a Black sergeant is murdered. So there's a series of interrogations that follow, and those interrogations trigger a gripping barrage of questions about sacrifice, about service, about identity in America. And we put in our story that what you're going to see on stage kind of mirrors or brings up the horrific beating, death last month in Memphis, Tennessee,
Absolutely.
of Tyree Nichols at the
Yes.
hands of 5 Black police officers. And that this story and that the Tyree Nichols story screams the pain of generational urgency, and sort of brings a enduring timeliness of the themes examined by this play. Question is, what happens when Black men, driven by internalized racism, turn on each other? So I'll maybe share some more of that later on as we have the conversation. But
Yes.
you know, I remember watching the play, Robin, when it was here at the Guthrie. Did you go see it then when it was here?
I did. I remember seeing it at the Guthrie again and again with the movie, which was also superb.
And the movie.
I had an opportunity, and again, one of the reasons why we brought together the Vision Trust, and again, that was just a vision that was placed on my spirit, and just insisting. And I've been honored to walk with the Ordway for 17 years now, in the capacity of shepherding, taking our place center stage.
Mm-hmm.
We've had amazing partnerships with you.
Mm-hmm.
And
you've done amazing work. It's been marvelous.
I thank you. I thank you for the article. Elle, was just amazing. So we want to thank you for the article, the front page of Inside. Mm-hmm. Just so gracious.
Maybe we can pull up the front page and show it before the interview is over.
So thorough. I mean, just so wow. You again honored us once again as a partner. But I know that was placed on my soul to do that. We had to bring again together these brothers for so many reasons. And I want to talk a little bit later about that too. This Vision Trust of Black men. Very intentional. One of the visions for this collective of Black men, to ensure that we have an audience of Black people, that we have Black people in the audience. I had the privilege of seeing the play at the Kennedy Center in December, in DC, to go back to my second home, DC, to experience the play. First of all, before the play, get to talk to a lot of Black folks in the lobby. Experience the play with a lot of Black folks in the audience, talk to them during intermission, share with folks about what we're doing here in Minnesota. First of all, have Black folks talk to me about how y'all doing there. You know,
they asking about us. That's right.
George Floyd and Philando, people know about what we're going through here, and they want to know how we're doing here, and to talk about the Vision Trust of Black men. And one brother, let me get your information. My wife and I want to come out and see and experience this play with you all. Once they heard about what we're doing with this Vision Trust of Black men, and then debrief with Black people after the play. You see, and I've been able to experience this over the years with how we've done things at the Ordway, talking with actors at talkbacks, after a play. Even when you had Jesus, we had Jesus Christ Superstar, and we had a Black Jesus, and you put the Black Jesus on the front page of the Inside News.
And the headline was Jesus is Black.
Jesus is Black.
That's right.
this over the years, but the talk back with the cast of Porgy and Bess, when that was revisioned, and there was a revival of that. But when the actors said, when we go to North Carolina, we expect to see a lot of Black folks in the audience, and we don't. We come to St. Paul not expecting that, and we do see it. That brings something out of us. Well, that's what I experienced at the Kennedy Center, and we want that experience here. We talked about some of the actors. Norm Lewis. We might remember him from the ABC show Scandal. He was a senator on Scandal. He was the first African American on Broadway to play the lead in Phantom of the Opera, right? So these are some heavy hitters. But at the Kennedy Center, I cannot tell you how powerful that experience was. Yes, the cast, but being in that audience and looking over and seeing so many of my people. We want to recreate that here. So to create that here, to have this vision trust of Black men, we had our first convening of the Vision Trust in December. It was a stormy night, but brothers showed up. Brother on the phone that shared his testimony, but we opened the meeting up. We had a meal, but we opened the meeting up with the Donny Hathaway rendition of "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother."
Wow.
And as the brothers read, some of the brothers read the words as the song was playing, and we saw tears. The introductory ritual was they held a candle. Excuse me. This candle. James Baldwin.
Yep.
And they passed it as they said their names and lifted up what brought them hope and peace. And they passed it in the tradition of our indigenous brothers and sisters, with led by their hearts from left. That set the tone. And brothers talked about it's nice to have a safe space. I asked the brothers, I said, brothers, this is your space now. As a sister, I'll leave. And one of the brothers said, if there's any Black woman that has earned the right to be with us, sister, it's you. And I just said, that was the tone that was set as they then went on to take care of the business. They will continue because this is a powerful partnership. I must lift up the Humanities Center. We are in partnership with the Humanities Center. Kevin Lindsay has been amazingly gracious. Our leader, and for those of you who do not know, for the first time making history as we're in Black History Month, at the Humanities Center with Kevin Lindsay, and at the Ordway Center for Performing Arts, our new leader, President and CEO, Black man Christopher Harrington, coming from Detroit, is our President and CEO. For such a time as this, is one of my favorite scriptures from the Bible, Esther 4:14. For such a time as this is how we're doing it, right?
Well, Robin, you've been doing it this way for a long, long, long time. As you were speaking, I was remembering with a smile in my heart and on my face the time that you and me and my brother Wayne and Stokely from Mint Condition jammed when we were doing an interview about the play. Was it A Misbehavin'? Or what was the play that was coming? A Misbehavin', right? And you all improvised. You sang with them and improvised a jam that flowed into a Coltrane tune, I think. That was just absolutely magical, and healing and affirming of our genius for perception, intuition, for being the vessel and presenting the living spirit, because that's what kind of settled on and through all of us in that television presentation we did back then. But you've been doing that all the time. I also think about the time when you organized an event at the Ordway that celebrated, among others, Sister Doris Hines. You remember that event? You remember that? That was.
Remember, yes. I mean, we've had, and that is what it's about. And if I may say, Gary wanted to make sure that his mother, took her rightful place, center stage at the Ordway. While it was not on the stage, but she had a few times. I mean, and that is what, unapologetically being very intentional, having the brothers and sisters, the artists from Cuba be over there at the Garvey House.
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
there are so many stories, and if I may lift up, when we launched the whole movement of taking our place center stage, inviting over 100 people from our community to come and have lunch at the Ordway, a vision of what that whole movement should become. But and even naming it, I pulled my mother's wisdom, who raised us. My children will take their rightful place in institutions of art, culture, and history because I pay taxes. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
And so they will take their rightful place in these institutions. My brother Kadar and Christopher were on Almanac on Friday night,
Mm.
and we talked about this Vision Trust being about how do we partner authentically with these institutions of arts and culture. How do we, again, as Black men, create these safe spaces, but that this is a movement that will continue on. I'm already visioning, the work that you're doing when you told me that you're a veteran.
That's right.
The Johnny Baker?
Johnny Baker Post in North Minneapolis. Yeah.
North
Yep.
Minneapolis.
Hopefully we'll have a number of our members represented
at the play.
Yeah,
it's not too late. And I'm gonna go on and put it out there. We used to have for years the SoulTouch offer. That's kind of sunsetted now, but we do have and I'm gonna go on and put it out there. I wasn't supposed to broadcast, but I'm putting it out there. Vision, capital letters, 15. That's that special offer for this one, because we want community to fill up the house. I want to look out when a couple of nights I'll lead the post-show discussion. That's not every night. We will have one on the 9th. But when there's a few shows I get to do the stage, or introduce the play, I want to look out. I want the actors to look out, and see us there. I want to do that. I want this Vision Trust to be, again, let us be leaders in the nation for this is how we do it. This is what it looks like when we take our rightful place, center stage, to use the arts to inform, to heal, to bring joy, to help us address these very difficult issues in our community, and to come to solutions.
Yeah. So what do you imagine is going to happen at the Vision Trust event after the play? How typically does it unfold?
The convenings?
Yeah.
I know the brothers will come together. There will be many of the brothers at the different performances where we have the talkbacks. We'll be there to kind of, again, chime in. There were many powerful things that came out of the first convening, like this lifting up that this story is one story, that there are multiple stories that come from Black men who have served, multiple stories that come from Black men who are street soldiers, and it's about us, as you do, lifting up all of these stories, that there are multiple narratives, that's very important. I know one of the things that I wanted to happen even at the play, that I want when you open up the program, at the play, that there are 2 pages dedicated to the Vision Trust. The images, we had a Black photographer. So they're going to, the people who come in, the audience members will look in the program and see images of Black men hugging and strategizing together. This starts there. Yes, the play is heavy, but they will see representation of he ain't heavy. He's my brother. That's a counter narrative to what they have seen and what they see on the news nightly, right? That was very important to members of the Vision Trust. And so they will come together, they will debrief, and they will strategize on what does it look like for this trust to continue.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest is my friend, Robin Hickman Winfield. She's the guiding spirit, the leader, CEO of SoulTouch Productions, and has operated in partnership with the Ordway and now with the Minnesota Humanities Center. And the particular collaboration is the presentation of A Soldier's Play. A Soldier's Play is coming to the Ordway, being presented at the Fitzgerald Theater starting the 8th. And putting up here, if you look at the Insight News coverage, thanks to Robin Hickman Winfield, who said, Al, this is important. You need to jump on this. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah,
and so this is the the cover of today's Inside News, inviting our community to know the story and to know Robin's particular work in convening the Vision Trust of Black men and the events going on. And again, this story alludes to the connection between not only the prophetic voice that the author of the play spoke with and spoke from. And we know now that it's prophetic because of what's happening today, right now in Memphis, and what happened last year here in Minneapolis, downtown, and what happened 2 years ago in South Minneapolis with George Floyd, that continues to happen around the country. And so it's an examination of how we are in structures, systems, processes that both deny and encourage self-destruction in our community. And the question is how we look at that, name it, and
Yes.
continue to reveal both resilience and the power of overcoming and the march towards our own truth with our own dignity and in a spirit of overcoming that we feel assured that victory is both at hand and inevitable. It's near. Robin, I want to take a minute just to walk through your career, to walk through Robin Hickman Winfield. You've been doing so much for so long. And as always, I love you to talk about your mom and dad. I think start there and actually go back before that because you represent lineages, lines of engagement and awareness in the history of St. Paul and in the history of the country. So you can take it wherever the spirit takes you at the moment right now, but talk about all those things that pour into the making of Robin Hickman Winfield.
Oh, thank you. You know, I always like to lift up and I have people laughing. I like to share that I'm a proud fifth generation Minnesotan. I use like I use that Minnesota Norwegian twang.
Mhm.
But I'm very proud of that, and that's by way. And yes, I'm a proud St. Paul Selby-Dale girl. By way of Rondo, love and miss my grandmother Lillian Parks Thomas. When my uncle Gordon Parks and my the Parks family moved from Kansas, from Fort Scott, Kansas, including my grandmother, his sister, moved up and landed in St. Paul. And proud of that heritage. We lift up Uncle Gordon all the time, but I love my grandmother Lillian. Of the 15 kids, he was the youngest. My grandmother was next to him. And love my Nana. We loved it. Love my family, my Parkside. I love being a Fraser. My part of those families, the Tates, the Andersons, and many of those families that came from Kentucky and landed in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. My mother was born in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. My great-grandparents are buried in the North Shore of Lake Mille Lacs. That's the side that many people don't know. Fergus Falls, where my grandmother, and Jimmy Jan Harris's mother were best friends in Fergus Falls. That my uncle Art Frazier, the oldest of my mother's 6 brothers, and Fred Anderson, Sylvia Anderson, and the Andersons, and Andre Simone's father were best friends, very good friends. Uncle Fred and Aunt Bernadette, all of those families and that tight-knit family. I mean, oh my goodness, the movie. All of those tight-knit families in Fergus Falls that migrated down to the north side of Minneapolis. My mama was a north side girl. She is laid to rest on the north side. She insisted. That is just as much a part of my family to know that the Minnesota Bishop of the Church of God in Christ, Reverend Bishop Stanley Neal Frazier, was born in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I am so proud of that lineage. The Fergus Falls family picnics that we used to have. Whenever I listen, that's why I was proud when Jimmy and Terry were inducted into the Hall of Fame, the blues, Rhythm of Blues Hall of Fame. Because I remember when Jimmy used to DJ those picnics at Minnehaha Falls for the Fergus Falls. So many stories that people don't even know about. So it's that lineage. But when I think about that girl from Fergus Falls, Minnesota, North Side, hooking up with that That Bobby Hickman from St. Paul, that's how they used to do back in the day. It's an amazing story. And that my mother was just as deep of an activist as my father was. Mama, uncompromising and uncompromised. And it made for a really powerful combination. But both of them encouraged me to lean in, and my brothers and my sister lean into our own ways, our own activism, but they both nurtured me to do my thing. Got a little bit of from both of them to kind of figure out, my thing. Started very, very young. Being clear, Jeremiah, in the book of Jeremiah, it says, I knew you in your mother's womb.
Yep.
I knew the plans that I had for you. And I felt it at a young age, what my purpose and calling was. Yes. So started young and I just love it. My village godmothers and godfathers and my dear other village fathers, Mahmoud Al-Kati. So this village actually really, truly raised me. That's not a Hillary Clinton thing. We need to snatch that back. It takes a village to raise a child, and it's truly the village that I came from that raised me. And I've been honored to be able to give that back. At a young age, falling in love with media making, got that honestly from Uncle Gordon. He groomed me since I was a little girl.
Tell the Gordon Parks St. Paul story. I've interviewed him a number of times over the years, and early on when I was a reporter for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, that might have been back in the first time I interviewed Gordon Parks was in 1960, probably 69, maybe 70, and it's when The Learning Tree came out. That was the first time I interviewed him to talk about The Learning Tree, that his first movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
His first movie, again, coming from Fort Scott, because great-grandma Sarah and great-grandpa wanted him to live a better life, and sending him up to Minnesota would be, he had, very difficult time. I was very blessed. It was an 8-year labor of love, but was able to partner with the History Theater last year where we presented Parks' Portrait of a Young Artist. So I was able to, with the great playwright Harrison Rivers, and we presented a play of Uncle Gordon's early years and his struggles, being homeless and fighting poverty, racism, and violence as a young man.
Living on the bus, right? Riding the bus between towns, and that's his nighttime.
Struggling. But so we presented a play. We got great reviews, and who knows, it might make Broadway. But to be able to tell that story on the stage, but we presented his life. And when he discovered the camera, Uncle Gordon said often that shooting this camera proved to be more powerful than shooting the gun. But he got his start here at a young age, formative years, and it went on. Photography is one of his choices of weapons. Filmmaking, first black photographer for Life magazine, Vogue magazine. But a lot of people don't know he was one of the founders of Essence magazine. Went on to be the first Black director in Hollywood with a film adaptation of his autobiography, The Learning Tree. Went on to make Shaft. His second autobiography, though, A Choice of Weapons, chronicled his life here. To do great things. But as I share, I teach at Gordon Parks High School, Gordon Parks Legacy class every 4 times a week. My cousin Anura Cesar teaches 1 day a week. But that isn't fulfilling our promise to Uncle Gordon, that his living would not be in vain. My last visit with Uncle Gordon, he had tears in his eyes at 93 years old. And he said, baby, what's going to happen to Black boys? What did I really do? He questioned, because at the end of his life, he's worried about the young men, the boys that look like him. Worrying, did they have it worse than he had it when he was struggling on the streets of St. Paul? And I said, Uncle Gordon, don't worry. Got this. Your living will not be in vain. So the work that I do, but it's sometimes difficult. When he was alive, it was not difficult to walk in my rightful place in his legacy. But when he passed away, it's like a fight to keep my rightful place and doing the work to keep my promise to him sometimes, right? But and we'll talk about that later. But it is because he's the man now. I mean, everybody wants to have whatever, and it shouldn't be. Because I was doing the work while he was living, so he could trust that. He knew when I could talk to him about doing work at Red Wing Correctional Facility. with young men who were choice of weapons fellows while they were incarcerated.
Right.
And they would write him letters, and I could stand in his kitchen with him and see him cry as he read the letters from the young men. And he would build relationships with young men while they were incarcerated, young men who weren't wasting time while doing time, as they would strive to walk in his footsteps while incarcerated. So he knew I could do it. Right? That gave him peace before he died, because he knew his living would not be in vain. With all the fame as the Renaissance man, that's what brought him peace. So as I walk with my young people today and tell them, Uncle Gordon was a visionary, but so are you. As he sat on panels with the Don't Believe the Hype crew. Right?
I want to get to that. Let's talk about Don't Believe the Hype. You went off to Howard University, first of all.
Yeah, he groomed me since I was little to be on this path as a medium, for me to walk in his footsteps. So I love doing it. I was a teenager and had a radio show on KUXL. I was a teenager and was a reporter on KSTP. I interviewed Evelyn Champagne King, George Clinton. Folks don't even know my story. At the Met Center interviewing George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and all of that. And I'm walking through the Met Center afraid to interview him. He says, girl, what's wrong with you? I heard you have a radio show. He researched me to know that I could interview him. You know, and so I had this fabulous life preparing to take my rightful place in media making, because Uncle Gordon groomed me. So to later be a producer on the HBO documentary of his life while he was living, right? He knew I was ready to do it because he groomed me, right? So folks don't even know why now, as I get ready to turn 60, I'm coming fierce. Oh, no one's co-opting anymore my rightful place in what is my stuff. No more, right? Because I've paid the dues and I'm ready, right? And so going out to Howard, the years I've spent with him, walking with him, going out to Howard. He spoke once at Howard School of Communications, and he got up and he said, you know, yeah, where's my niece? You know, and I never, and when I went to Howard, one of my professors was Sam Yet, who covered the South with him. I never told Professor Yet that I was Uncle Gordon's niece. Man, I could be a lot farther along if I just told people. He used to tell me, baby, tell people you belong to me.
Yeah.
But I never wanted him to think that I was just, you know,
trading on his name.
On his name.
Yeah.
He used to beg me, let people know.
Let them know. Yeah.
Let them know.
Yep.
You know, and so I didn't. Maybe I should.
That's such a good lesson. I mean, that's what we got to do, is tell the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil, right?
Shame the devil. And it wasn't until the HBO documentary, and we were at a meeting at HBO, and he pounded on the table. He said, damn it, all I am doing this is because of my niece. I have so many stories. One of the things that I love now, last week, I participated in Rondo at the Winter Carnival. We had all these Black businesses for Rondo, and we participated. It was an amazing event. And last week, I appeared at Star Tribune Sunday, Pioneer Press Friday, Channel 11 Thursday night. It was so fun. But it was all about what? My greatest passion is being Stevie's wife. I'm not gonna lie. That's why I make everybody make sure you say Winfield, because it took a long time.
That's right.
To say I'm married now, but you know, being a great woman of faith and being a wife, but it's my artistry. As you featured on the cover of Inside, but a celebration of soulful dolls. And that's what I presented at the event last week. And that got me all of those media interviews, was my artistry. But in the Star Tribune on Sunday, they had a picture of my mini Robin doll and my Gordon Parks doll. One of the precious moments with my Uncle Gordon was when he met the customized doll of himself.
Are those dolls on your website? Are they on your website?
My dolls are on Instagram.
On Instagram.
Celebrate Soulful Dolls. And I tell you, Al, when I
maybe we can pull those up. I'm not sure if we can or not.
There's going to be something big that I'm about to announce. Huge. Big announcement coming soon. But when I took my dolls out, Uncle Gordon was feeling really low. He summoned me. He said, baby, you need to come out here. And I said, oh boy. So I took some of my dolls, some of my photography of my dolls, and I had my Gordon Parks doll. And I put it on the table. He came out of his room. He said, baby, is that me? I said, yeah, that's you. And he just lit up. He saw one of my photographs and he said, well, baby, how did you tell me how you accomplished that photograph? I said, damn it, I ain't you. I just, sun was shining. I was looking good. I took the picture. And he just laughed. And we were actually going to work on a photography book project together. And he passed away before I could get back out for us to do it. I had a glorious life with my uncle. And I'm going to take my rightful place in his legacy. I am going to do that at every level. I mean, doggone it, Denzel was the executive producer of the doc. Alfre Woodard was the narrator. I mean, I have had a glorious life. Right now, I have joy in it, preparing young people to walk in their extraordinary. Don't believe the hype. I have returned because of the president, Sylvia Strobel, who came to be the president 3 years ago. We worked together at the station 20 some odd years ago. Good friends then. She returned and invited me to return.
This is TPT, Twin Cities Public Television, where you work and where you did award-winning work as well. Talk about the awards.
With Susan Robeson and Dan Bergen. I later became the executive producer of community affairs at TPT 20-some years ago. Had a little departure, but I thank you for walking with me through that, Elle. Yeah. But Sylvia Strobel returned 3 years ago and asked me if I would return to bring Don't Believe the Hype back. So this is my first big announcement that I have returned as a co-executive producer, and Don't Believe the Hype is back. We started a pilot last year, and we're in our second year of bringing hype back and building up to having the show. But we have an incredible group of 15 young people of color, and I am overjoyed. And I walk through that station now, have my little cubicle space, and I say, it's only God. Again, when I saw Jimmy and Terry, and I talked to Jerome Benton, who we all grew up together. And I think about the first dollars for the first Don't Believe the Hype came from Terry and Jimmy.
Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam Harris.
Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam. The first dollars to fund Don't Believe the Hype came from Jimmy and Terry. The first guest on the first show, Don't Believe the Hype, 20-something years ago, was Terry Lewis. And I have this picture of him on the set with the Don't Believe the Hype crew. Y'all, we come from an amazing community. And you said the word victory. And my brother Kadar talks about, the lyrics of the Black National Anthem, until victory is won, which means victory is inevitable. And we have to remember that.
That's right.
It's inevitable. It is inevitable. It's ours to claim. And so when we talk about narratives and the negative narratives and the heavy narratives, yes, we got some work to do. My mother, and you wrote a beautiful article when Mama went on to glory. And the headline was, but Mama said to Josie Johnson in the hospital a week before she went to glory, she said she could hardly speak, but she said, Josie, we still have so much work to do.
That's right.
And you put that as the headline for her story. And we do. And I know my dear Bianca Rhodes, who was a part of Don't Believe the Hype when she was a teenager. I believe those you mentor will mentor you. I talk about Maya Angelou. Her poem, A Pledge to Rescue Our Youth, is a powerful poem. Talks about what we have to do to ensure the destiny of our young people. I read it and people go crazy. But I said, but wait, I have a question. But who will rescue the rescuers? Who's going to rescue the rescuers? But I believe if you are a good rescuer, those you've rescued will rescue you.
That's right.
Bianca Rhodes is one of those, my dear Bianca Rhodes, who was a Don't Believe the Hype. She's gone on to become an Emmy award-winning producer. And I go to Bianca and she rescues me. And one day she said, I was feeling low. And she said, Auntie, activate the ancestors.
There we go.
Activate the ancestors. So I used to cry to Mama, I didn't get to have any kids. And she said, Robin, you have hundreds. If you had your own, you wouldn't have all the children that you have. So I have many young people that are grown up, and even while they're young, I tell my students my scholars at Gordon Parks,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be days I need you more than you need me.
Mm-hmm.
And you should see how they sit up.
Mm-hmm.
Young people who have been dismissed and discounted,
Mm-hmm.
walking in Uncle Gordon's footsteps, doing amazing things. We must claim victory.
That's right.
So I thank my rescuers, you being one. The work again that we do at the Ordway, this play, I cannot, folks. I gave you the code. I probably wasn't supposed to do
Let's
it
give
too
it again
long,
and
but
let's give it again and make the invitation again, because we're about out of time.
Vision, all capital letters, 15. Vision 15. Again, we also had we had screenings of video of the play 3 times, and that was led by Sankofa Leadership, and that's Anika Ward. She did some amazing work leading those focus groups around seeing the play. We've tried to do some really powerful work around this. Again, thank you again for presenting it. Thank you for having me on. And again, I want folks to walk with Brother Christopher Harrington. I'm gonna be focusing on Soulful Dow's and TPT and hype and teaching the babies at Gordon Parks.
I have to ask you to help me organize a meeting with Brother Christopher. We haven't met yet, but we featured him. It just hasn't happened. I think COVID kind of, I'm not out like I used to be, but this medium of the Zoom or telecom is really cool. But that's a conversation I want to have, and maybe it can be me, you, and Christopher,
that
and
would
talk
be
about
great.
The work.
I want to thank you again too for putting him on the cover. For my anniversary, Stevie framed that and gave it to me, and I think I gave it to him. But no, I have the one that he gave to me. I have in my classroom at Gordon Parks High School. And we also gave a copy to one of his close friends, Terrence Blanchard. So Terrence Blanchard put it on his social media, your cover of Insight that you put Christopher Harrington on. And he boasted about it. So,
Robin, we're out of time. Look, we can go on. But tell you what, thank you so much. And everybody, go see A Soldier Play at the Ordway. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care.